Imagine New York, the city that never sleeps, tucked into bed with a Canadian lullaby. Picture the iconic skyline, the bustling streets, and the vibrant culture of New York City, all under the maple leaf flag. It's a thought that seems straight out of a fantasy novel or a late-night comedy sketch. But let's entertain this wild idea for a moment. It sounds like the plot of a wacky sitcom, where the characters find themselves in the most absurd situations, laughing and navigating through the chaos. But what if this sitcom scenario had a hint of reality? What if, in some alternate universe, Canada actually considered purchasing New York State? The idea of Canada purchasing New York State, including the metropolis itself, is not just a whimsical thought. It's a concept that has sparked some bizarre late-night conversations among friends, politicians, and even economists. The sheer scale of such a transaction is mind-boggling. These conversations often start as jokes, perhaps over a few drinks, but they quickly turn into serious debates. People ponder the logistics, the benefits, and the potential drawbacks. Could such a deal ever be feasible? What would it mean for the residents of New York and Canada? Why talk about this now? Let's be honest, the world is a strange place. In an era where unexpected events have become the norm, the idea of a country buying a state doesn't seem as far-fetched as it once might have. The global landscape is constantly shifting, and with it the possibilities of what could happen next. Global politics are volatile. Economies are unpredictable. The world is in a state of flux, and traditional boundaries and alliances are being questioned. In such a climate, unconventional ideas can sometimes gain traction. The notion of Canada acquiring New York State might just be one of those ideas that, while improbable, isn't entirely impossible. Maybe, just maybe, this outlandish idea isn't as crazy as it sounds. When you think about it, both regions have a lot to offer each other. New York's economic power and cultural influence combined with Canada's resources and stability could create a unique synergy. It's a thought experiment that invites us to think outside the box. This essay dives headfirst into this hypothetical scenario. We'll explore the various dimensions of this idea, from the political ramifications to the economic impacts and the cultural shifts that might occur. It's a deep dive into a world of what-ifs and could-bes. We'll examine the political, economic, and cultural chaos that might occur if Canada ever added New York to its shopping cart. How would the governments negotiate such a deal? What would happen to the financial markets? How would the people of both regions adapt to such a monumental change? Fasten your seatbelts, folks. It's going to be a wild ride. As we journey through this speculative scenario, prepare to challenge your perceptions and consider the unimaginable. The world is full of surprises, and sometimes the most outlandish ideas can spark the most intriguing discussions. Let's be practical. Canada buying New York seems far-fetched. There's no historical precedent. However, stranger things have happened. Canada, known for its politeness and diplomacy, might be tempted by New York's strategic importance. Think about it, a major port on the Atlantic, a global hub for finance and media, and a gateway to the rest of the United States. Adding New York's population would instantly boost Canada's global standing. It would also give Canada more clout on the world stage. Of course, the political fallout with the US would be messy, to say the least. But hey, maybe Canada's tired of being the nice guy all the time. Okay, let's talk money. New York is an economic powerhouse. It boasts a massive GDP, larger than many countries. Buying it would require a king's ransom, one that might even make a Canadian blush. Canada, while economically stable, doesn't have that kind of cash lying around. They'd need to pull off some serious financial gymnastics. Think massive loans, selling off national treasures, sorry hockey fans, no more Stanley Cup, and maybe even a nationwide bake sale. Even then, it's debatable if Canada could afford New York. The logistics alone are mind-boggling. This is one expensive proposition, even for a country known for its maple syrup reserves. Let's assume for a moment that Canada somehow scrapes together the funds to buy New York. The economic aftershocks would be felt across the globe. New York, now under Canadian rule, would face a period of intense adjustment. Canadian laws, taxes, and regulations would create both opportunities and headaches. Wall Street, in particular, might experience a collective meltdown. Canada, meanwhile, would need to integrate New York's economy into its own. This would be a massive undertaking. The Canadian dollar might go on a roller coaster ride. One thing's for sure, this economic experiment would have everyone holding their breath. Section 5. Cultural fusion or confusion. From bagels to poutine, merging identities. Now, for the fun part, culture. New Yorkers are known for their fast-paced, in-your-face attitude. Canadians, well, they're known for being, well, Canadian. The cultural clash would be epic. Imagine New York City cab drivers being forced to apologize for traffic jams. Picture Broadway shows with intermissions for Tim Hortons coffee and donuts. On the flip side, Canadians might inject some much-needed chill into the city that never sleeps. Maybe New Yorkers would learn to appreciate the joys of ice hockey and poutine. The possibilities are endless and hilarious to imagine. Section 6. Legal hurdles and loopholes. Can you really buy a state? Let's get serious for a moment. Legally speaking, Canada can't just buy New York. The US Constitution doesn't have a for sale sign hanging on it. The process would be incredibly complex. It would involve negotiations at the state, federal, and international levels. Lawyers would have a field day, constitutional scholars would be glued to their books. In short, the legal barriers are immense, bordering on insurmountable. It's safe to say that this scenario is more likely to play out in a law school exam than in real life. Section 7. Life after the sale. Imagining a New York under the maple leaf. Let's indulge our imaginations for a moment. Picture this. New York City, the bustling metropolis known for its towering skyscrapers, iconic landmarks, and vibrant culture, now under the governance of Canada. It's a scenario that seems straight out of a novel, but let's explore the possibilities. What would life be like in a New York governed by Canada? Would the city that never sleeps take on a more relaxed Canadian pace? Imagine the blend of cultures, the merging of traditions, and the new identity that would emerge from such a union. The Statue of Liberty, now sporting a Mountie hat, would become a symbol of this unlikely union. This iconic statue, a beacon of freedom and hope, would now also represent the friendship and collaboration between two great nations. The streets of Manhattan might be a tad cleaner thanks to Canada's more robust social safety net. With a focus on community welfare and public services, New York could see improvements in cleanliness and public health. And who knows, maybe New Yorkers would finally get universal health care. Imagine the relief of having access to medical services without the burden of exorbitant costs. It could be a game changer for many residents. Of course, not everything would be rosy. The transition would come with its own set of challenges. There would be concerns, debates, and protests. The idea of losing autonomy and being governed by another country would not sit well with everyone. The loss of autonomy would likely irk many New Yorkers. The city prides itself on its independence and unique identity. Adjusting to new governance and policies would be a significant hurdle. The cultural adjustments would take time and effort from both sides. Canadians and New Yorkers would need to find common ground, learn from each other, and build a new shared culture. It would be a journey of mutual understanding and respect. But hey, at least the bagels would stay the same, right? Some things are just too iconic to change. The beloved New York bagel would remain a staple, a delicious reminder of the city's rich culinary heritage. In the end, imagining a New York under the maple leaf is a fascinating exercise in creativity. It challenges us to think about identity, governance, and the blending of cultures. While it may never happen, it's fun to dream about the possibilities and what such a future might hold. Section 8. The world reacts. Global implications of a continental shift. The world wouldn't stand idly by while Canada and the US rearranged their furniture. The geopolitical ramifications of such a sale would be massive. Allies would scramble to understand the new balance of power. Adversaries might see an opportunity to exploit the situation. The United Nations would need a serious seating chart update. In short, the world would be watching, analyzing, and speculating. The sale of New York would be the biggest news story in history, dominating headlines and sparking endless debates. Section 9. Conclusion. A far-fetched fantasy or a glimpse into the future? Let's be real. The chances of Canada buying New York are about as likely as a unicorn winning the Kentucky Derby. It's a whimsical notion, one that belongs more in the realm of fairy tales and fantasy novels than in the real world. But sometimes, it's these very fantasies that make us pause and think. They challenge our perceptions and make us question the boundaries of what's possible. It's a fun thought experiment, but the practical and legal hurdles are insurmountable. The logistics alone would be a nightmare, not to mention the political ramifications. Imagine the debates, the endless meetings, the legal battles. It would be a bureaucratic quagmire of epic proportions. Yet, in pondering such an outlandish scenario, we can uncover deeper truths about our world. However, this outlandish scenario highlights some important truths. It forces us to consider the fluidity of borders and the ever-changing nature of geopolitics. It makes us think about the interconnectedness of our world and how decisions in one part of the globe can have ripple effects elsewhere. It also underscores the importance of imagination in problem-solving and innovation. The world is changing at a rapid pace. Technological advancements are reshaping our cities and our lives. What seemed impossible just a few decades ago is now a reality. From self-driving cars to artificial intelligence, the future is unfolding before our eyes, and it's happening faster than we ever imagined. Geopolitical norms are being challenged. Nations are redefining their roles on the global stage, and alliances are shifting. The rise of new powers and the decline of old ones are creating a dynamic and sometimes volatile international landscape. In this context, even the most far-fetched ideas can serve as a catalyst for important discussions about our collective future. And sometimes, even the most absurd ideas can spark important conversations. They can inspire us to think outside the box and to consider solutions that we might otherwise dismiss. They remind us that innovation often comes from the most unexpected places, and that creativity is a powerful tool for addressing complex challenges. So, while we might not see a Canadian flag flying over the Empire State Building anytime soon, it's always good to keep an open mind. Who knows what the future holds? The world is full of surprises, and sometimes reality can be stranger than fiction. By staying open to new ideas, we can better navigate the uncertainties of the future. After all, in a world full of surprises, anything is possible. The boundaries of what we consider possible are constantly being pushed, and today's fantasy could very well be tomorrow's reality. So let's embrace the unexpected and remain curious about the world around us, because in the end, it's our imagination and willingness to dream that will shape the future.